you're on a headset and you are open to everybody. So whenever you talk, whenever you cough, whenever you sniffle, everyone can hear you. So you have to be really careful about what you say on mic, because sometimes when you're just having a conversation with whoever sat next to you.
Honestly, you hear people's best secrets when you think that their mic isn't on.
Exactly.
Hey, how are you? And welcome back to Outside the Box. This is the brand new podcast all about women in sport. Now, it's been a whole week or 7 days since the last episode, so I thought it about time that we dropped another for you. I hope you had a good week since we last spoke. I'm Becky Ives, and we're back with my next guest. To hang out, we're going to share some stories, offer help and advice to anyone thinking of wanting to get into working in sport. That's the whole point of this podcast. I'm going to play a few games and just be super nosy, finding out how my guests have got to where they have today. And today's guest, well, this one's a little bit different for both of us, I have to say, because normally this guest, well, she's a voice in my ear. And yet today, she sat opposite me, and normally she's behind the camera, but I'm so lucky that she agreed. She stepped out from behind the camera to come and talk to me face to face. TV Director Grace Weerakoon is here. Yay!
Thank you.
How are you feeling? Are you nervous being this side?
I'm really nervous.
Which is so funny because you are the most chattiest person.
I know, normally you can't shut me up.
I know, and today you're like, oh. But look, thank you so much for talking to me about this. TV director. Let's just explain, what exactly is your job?
I basically boss people around and tell people what to do.
That's pretty much
the
what
short
you do.
version.
And the long version?
Is you're in charge of everything that you see on screen. So if you see graphics on screen, when you see the presenters on screen, when you see different kind of features and videos, you're in charge of queuing all of those and making those happen. So you've kind of got to tee everyone up and make sure they're ready to run whatever you need them to run. You've got to queue your presenters, and you've got to make sure everyone knows what they're doing at any given point. So if a camera needs to move somewhere else because we need to get a different shot, you've got to move that camera and then cue that camera, cue the presenter, and then throw to the feature or the video that you're going to throw to. You've got to cue the music, lights, everything that you see on screen is controlled by the director. It's funny because when I tell my family about it, they have no idea how TV works and what I do in relation to it. And the easiest way that I can kind of describe my role, if you think of an orchestra, you've got the composer who kind of comes up with the piece of music, and then you've got the conductor who cues everyone and makes the whole thing come together. And a TV director is kind of like that. You've got the composer, which is the producer, who kind of comes up with the show, decides what each person is talking about and the direction that we're going to go. But you've got the director or the conductor who basically makes everything happen, cues everyone at the right time and keeps it all on track and working and produces.
That is such a great analogy of what your job is. I've never thought of it like that before, but it's exactly what it is. We're all different parts of the orchestra. I'm the violin, somebody else is the flute, and you're the person that's bringing it all together.
Waving my hands around and making it all happen.
That is fabulous. So we work together at Premier League.
Yeah.
So you do football.
Yep.
What other sports have you done, or do you just do football?
So I started off, my first TV job was actually in athletics. I worked on the London 2012 Olympics.
Wow.
As a runner, so I was just making teas and coffees and getting people their lunches and taking scripts to commentators and things like that. So I was just kind of running around the whole stadium. I was based in the athletic stadium and it was incredible. I loved it.
I was going to say, that must have been London 2012. When you think back on that period of time, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Nothing but positive memories from it.
And I still have to pinch myself that I was there, because not only was I working on a home tournament, but I was in the Olympic Stadium and our studio was literally right on the finish line of the 100-metre track.
Wow. Did you see Usain Bolt?
I saw everything.
Oh,
that
God.
Super Saturday when you had Greg Rutherford and everyone kind of winning their gold medals, I was literally by the finish line. And it blows your mind when you think about it. I look back at my photos on my phone and I'm like, that actually happened.
Yeah.
And I was a kid. I'd just come out of university. I didn't know anyone. I just kind of got lucky, was in the right place at the right time and got this gig and didn't get paid for it. All I got, my expenses covered.
So it was just a runner at this point.
Just a runner.
Just being a runner for a TV production company.
So we did all the production for the big screen inside the stadium. And because there's athletics, there's always something going on. So we'd kind of, okay, that's the 100 meters finish. Now we're going to go over to discus or whatever it is. But in between, we'd kind of interview some people and that kind of stuff. So you'd be doing the studio stuff out and about wherever you are. But then you'd also kind of have the commentators upstairs who are commentating for the stadium during events. So you'd have to kind of make sure they were both happy. They had everything they needed. You'd have to give them the start lists for every race. So if I didn't print them off and give them to the commentators, they wouldn't have the start list.
Oh, wow. So in terms of a runner, you had a huge job as being a runner.
I wasn't the only one. It wasn't all of me. But
it wasn't a one-man show. It wasn't just Grace.
But so it was important. And the best thing about being a runner, you can go everywhere. My pass let me in around the whole stadium because I had to get around to be wherever our cameramen were. So it was amazing. I could just run around. I could speak to everyone and see what everyone did. And as a first job, it kind of gave me an insight into every part of TV, because at that point I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Did you want to work in TV?
Not when I went to uni. When I went to uni, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then while I was at uni, I joined up, you can join like clubs and societies and stuff. Joined up with a media society, did the TV stuff. So it's kind of all hands on deck kind of thing. So you did everything. You did the camera work, you did editing, presenting, directing, but it was all student media.
But it gave you a taste of every aspect.
It gave me a taste of it. It opened my eyes to something that I never even considered as a career or a possibility. I had no idea how you'd even get into TV or film or media. And then I just got lucky that in my final year, because the Olympics were happening, they'd advertised at universities and media courses around the country for people to volunteer to work.
At 2012.
At 2012.
So then you've done that in 2012. That's finished. So after that job, were you then like, hang on, I really do want to pursue this career in media?
Yeah, basically. I was like, I love this. This is definitely what I want to do. I could see myself doing this 10, 20 years into the future. Because for me, I always knew I couldn't do a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday office job. That wasn't for me. I had to be doing something that gave me a buzz or a thrill, something where it was different every day.
Yeah.
And TV gave me that, and sport gives you that as well.
There's no such day. There's no such thing as a normal day in sport, is there? So when did the TV directing come into play?
Probably about 2-3 years ago. So I'd worked my way.
So after 2012. So now we're talking this started in 2016-ish. So over those 4 years. What did you do in those 4 years?
Off the back of the Olympics, I applied for a load of jobs, ended up getting a job working as an assistant producer. Actually, it wasn't even it was a production assistant for the Football League show. Worked on that for 1.5 years, worked my way up to be an assistant producer. So I started off basically doing a bit similar to kind of runner role, so making teas and coffees on show day. I'd have to do all the invoices and the call sheets and a little bit of admin work. And at the same time, I was kind of shadowing everything and trying to learn as much as I could. So I kind of got to get my hands into a little bit of script writing and cutting a few VTs and features and things like openers, closers, kind of funky promo VTs. And then worked my way up to be an assistant producer, and then moved on to Premier League as an assistant producer. And that gave me all of the live experience working in the galleries, and that is where kind of my head was blown, because I was like, this is what I'm made to do. I'm made to work in galleries. I love the buzz. I love the thrill, the adrenaline rush. I was like, this is where I need to be. What I do in this gallery, I don't quite know yet.
Yeah. But where is my seat? Where is my place?
Yeah. And then I started doing VT co-ording, which basically means you're in charge of all the kind of feature videos that you see in a show. So when we started doing match days, it'd all be your pre-match, post-match manager interviews, your kind of teasers to break, kind of any openers, any closers, any features, any interviews, all of that kind of stuff. We would be in charge of recording them in as they're coming in, turning them around, putting it out. So you have to kind of manage your entire VT department on a match day and delegate who's going to do what. So I was already getting into kind of that management organisation kind of role. And then I ended up off the back of that doing a director's course, which was a week-long course. I mean, you get taught the basics of directing, and you get thrown in the seat and you kind of simulate some live experiences and throw your hat into it. But it all comes from the experience that I'd already gained in the gallery. So all of that kind of led up to doing the director's course. And then once you've kind of learned the foundations and the basics of directing, it was then kind of small shows, they started off giving me kind of like short form content, which is kind of a couple of minutes, little hits that we do to camera, and then built it up from that to do longer and longer shows. And now I basically do, I mean, I don't just do every show, but I work on every show.
But you do. It's fine. You can absolutely big yourself up. No, because you work across a number of shows.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, you work across a number.
I do every show on the Premier League now.
You absolutely do. But how many people are in a gallery?
Probably about 20, about 20 people. I'd say 20 to 25 people you're in charge of. And you're on a headset and you are open to everybody. So whenever you talk, whenever you cough, whenever you sniffle, everyone can hear you. So you have to be really careful about what you say on mic, because sometimes when you're off a show, you've just come off air, say, and you're prepping for the next show, you're rehearsing or not even about to rehearse, and you're still mic'd up, obviously. You're just having a conversation with whoever sat next to you.
Honestly, you hear people's best secrets when you think that their mic isn't on.
Exactly.
No, the best is when someone goes to the toilet and their mic's on. You're like, no, it's happened. That's so cool. And now you are girl boss, TV director of all these shows at Premier League. And honestly, you make it look easy. However, it's not that easy.
No, I'm like a duck paddling furiously underwater, but on the surface I look calm and steady.
And serene. Because the other thing about TV directing is, so you've built your way up, you've done this experience, you've done your course, they've started you out on smaller shows, you've got bigger and bigger. But eventually, when you do your first show, and it's very similar with presenting, you just have to throw yourself off the cliff, so to speak, and go for it, because there's only so much you can simulate and practice before you go, I've just got to jump and do this because we've got to go live and I've got to be across it.
Exactly. There's no in between. There's no kind of doing half a show or anything like that. You do your practice ones, but they don't give you that buzz, or they don't give you the pressure that you're actually under when you do a live show, and you've kind of just got to bite the bullet and do it. If something goes wrong, you have to deal with it. If something goes well, you take from it and you learn from it.
You also have to deal with, like, you know, people like me going, Grace, where are we going next? Grace, what's happening? Where am I standing here or am I standing there? And honestly, you are so on it every time. I can be like, are we doing tables or are we not? And you're like, no. I'm like, okay, great.
Okay, cool.
Like, before I've even finished my sentence to ask you what's coming next, you're like, no. I'm like, okay, great. You're so across it. It's fabulous.
But it's that times 20, because you've then got the lighting guy asking you questions about where we're going next. You've got the sound guy going, who's going to talk first? And you've got to prioritise, who do I need to answer first? So it's learning about that prioritising as well.
How do you prepare for doing a show?
You talk to the producer, who's obviously written the running order. You have a look through the running order and go through and basically look at if there's anything out of the ordinary, if they wanted to do something a little bit different, how much prep time that will need, and whether you can kind of do that live. Does it need to be pre-recorded? And then you go through and look through all the VTs as well. So you know kind of what the in of the VT is. So is it a slow fading in? Is it a hard in? And you've got to be quick on the cut to the VT. And similarly the out of it, because sometimes you'll have VTs which have a very short last shot, for example. So you tend to watch the VT so you have an idea of what to expect. And then once you've done that and you've kind of got an idea of what's happening in the show and where you need to go, so if we've got any live reporters that we're talking to or any externals that we're going to, you know exactly what to expect. And then the next thing you do, you get your presenters in because you're already clued up. And then you go through and kind of start rehearsing with the presenters, with the producer there as well.
It's an incredible process. Honestly, a TV gallery is just spectacular to watch. Everybody in there is so talented. And as a presenter, it does make you want to step up your game, because you're like, everyone has got this nailed to a T. Like, I cannot be like the weak link in this chain. Honestly, it's amazing.
It's a real team effort, and everyone is on it when we go on air. And so you kind of feel like everyone's together as well.
That's a really lovely feeling. That's a really great way to describe it. Right, throughout this podcast, Grace, we're going to play some games.
Oh, God.
Yay, you love a game. I'm asking all my guests that come on this to play these games. So Jules Breach and Phil Neville have gone before. Jules Breach is currently in the lead, 26, I apologise. Phil got 25 throughout this whole quiz. So
it's close.
It is close. So can you edge over at 27? Oh my God. We'll wait and see. The first one we're going to do is a YouTube clip. Now, normally with my guests, I show them a clip of a career highlight or something it means to them and ask them to talk around it. When you work behind the camera, there's nothing really much of you that I could find, to be honest. So I've got a different angle. I told you, outside the box by
name. That's a good thing, by the way.
Outside the box by nature. And I have found a clip, and I think this will be interesting for you listening to hear, because this is effectively what your job is, Grace. But can you explain just a little bit what is happening in this YouTube clip?